For thousands of years, the Book of Daniel has been a source of profound mystery and urgent warning. It is more than just a collection of ancient stories. It is a divine roadmap for the future, a blueprint given by God himself to the prophet Daniel while he was captive in Babylon. These prophecies lay out the grand sweep of human history, from Daniel's own time, right up to the very last days of our age. They speak of mighty empires that will rise and fall, of kings and kingdoms that will strut upon the world stage before vanishing into dust. For those of us living today, these ancient words have taken on a startling relevance, as if the headlines from our news channels were written centuries ago. The core of Daniel's prophetic message is a timeline of Gentile world powers. God revealed to him that a succession of 4 great empires would dominate the world, and specifically, the land of Israel. Each empire would be replaced by another, in a divinely ordained sequence, until a final climactic moment in history. This ultimate moment would see the destruction of all human kingdoms and the establishment of God's own eternal kingdom on earth, ruled by the Messiah. Understanding this sequence is the key to unlocking everything else. It's not just about predicting the future, it's about recognizing God's sovereign hand over the affairs of nations, assuring us that history is not a random series of events but is moving toward a predetermined conclusion. Many people today wonder if we are the generation that will see these final prophecies come to pass. When we look at the world around us, the political turmoil, the constant threat of war in the Middle East, the shifting alliances between nations, it's hard not to see the patterns Daniel described. The prophecies are not vague or general, they contain specific details about the nature of these kingdoms and the conflicts that will define them. They serve as a guide for believers, a way to interpret the signs of the times. They encourage us to watch and be ready, for the events Daniel foresaw are not distant possibilities but are unfolding before our very eyes. This prophetic framework is essential because it gives us a lens through which to view current events. Without it, the chaos of the world can seem overwhelming and meaningless. But, with the light of Daniel's prophecies, we can see a divine order and purpose. We can understand why certain nations are coming into focus, and why the tiny nation of Israel remains at the center of global conflict. The prophecies are a call to vigilance, reminding us that we are not merely spectators but are living in a pivotal moment of God's prophetic calendar. As we delve deeper, we can see exactly how these ancient visions connect to our world today. Daniel's most famous prophecies are given through 2 powerful visions, a giant statue made of different metals and a terrifying parade of 4 beasts rising from the sea. In Daniel chapter 2, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar dreams of a statue with a head of gold, a chest and arms of silver, a belly and thighs of bronze and legs of iron. Its feet were a brittle mixture of iron and clay. Daniel interpreted this to represent a sequence of 4 world empires. The golden head was Babylon itself. It would be followed by the Medo-Persian Empire, represented by silver, the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great, shown as bronze, and finally, the mighty Roman Empire, symbolized by iron, which would crush all who opposed it. This same sequence of empires is shown to Daniel again in chapter 7, but this time as 4 ferocious beasts. The first is a lion with eagle's wings, representing Babylon. The second is a ravenous bear, symbolizing Medo-Persia. The third is a swift leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, picturing the rapid conquest and subsequent division of Alexander the Great's Greek Empire. The fourth beast is the most terrifying of all, a dreadful, iron-toothed creature, different from all the others, representing the Roman Empire. These visions confirm the same historical timeline, showing us that God's plan is unchangeable, revealed through different but consistent symbolic language, leaving no room for doubt. The prophecy doesn't end with ancient Rome. The statue's feet of iron mixed with clay and the fourth beast's 10 horns point to a future, final form of this last empire. Many Bible scholars see this as a revived Roman Empire, a confederation of nations that will emerge in the end times. This final kingdom will be both strong like iron and brittle like clay, indicating a fragile alliance that is powerful yet internally divided. It is from this revived empire, this 10-nation confederacy, that the most sinister figure in all of prophecy will emerge, the Antichrist. He will rise to power and begin a reign of terror that will usher in the final years of human history as we know it. The connection to our modern world is electrifying. People who study prophecy see the precursors to this revived empire in modern European and global alliances. More importantly, they see the nations from Daniel's original visions re-emerging on the world stage. The land of ancient Babylon is modern-day Iraq. The Greek Empire's territory covers parts of Europe and the Middle East. And, most critically for our time, the Medo-Persian Empire is, without a doubt, modern-day Iran. This is why the actions of Iran are watched with such intensity by believers. It is a key player whose role was written down more than 2,500 years ago. The recent and escalating conflicts involving Iran have sent shockwaves through the community of believers who watch for prophetic signs. When we see headlines about joint United States and Israeli strikes against Iranian targets, we are not just witnessing geopolitical maneuvering. We are seeing what many believe is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. The identification of modern Iran with the ancient Persian Empire is a cornerstone of this view. Persia was the second great empire, in Daniel's vision, the bear that devoured much flesh. In other prophecies like Ezekiel 38, Persia or Iran is listed as a key ally in a future coalition that will attack Israel in the last days. Therefore, Iran's aggressive posture and its development of nuclear capabilities are seen as setting the stage for this prophesied war. The events of the last few years have been particularly stunning. The April 2024 attack, where Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles at Israel, was a dramatic escalation. This was followed by the 12-day war in June 2025, which saw both Israel and the United States under President Trump striking Iranian nuclear facilities. The most recent joint strikes in March 2026, which reportedly killed high-ranking Iranian leaders after the death of the Ayatollah, have convinced many that the final countdown has begun. For them, President Trump's actions are seen in a prophetic light, comparing him to King Cyrus of Persia, who was used by God to help Israel, suggesting Trump is a modern-day instrument to advance God's end-time plan. This series of events is often interpreted as leading directly into the prophetic timeline many evangelicals hold dear. This timeline typically begins with the rapture of the church, when all true believers will be suddenly taken to heaven. This event removes the church's restraining influence from the world, allowing evil to run rampant and paving the way for the Antichrist to rise to power. He will confirm a 7-year covenant or peace treaty with Israel, beginning a period known as the Tribulation. The strikes on Iran are seen by some as a potential trigger, an event that could destabilize the region so completely that it creates the perfect vacuum for this charismatic global leader to fill. From this perspective, the conflicts are not something to be feared, but are seen as signs of hope, indicators that Christ's return is near. The establishment of Israel in 1948 was believed to have started the final prophetic clock, and every major event in the Middle East since then is scrutinized for its place in the divine puzzle. The current confrontation with Iran is viewed as a major piece, falling into place. It is seen as a necessary precursor to even greater prophetic events, like the Gog and Magog war described in Ezekiel, which will ultimately culminate in the final battle of Armageddon and the glorious second coming of Jesus Christ. The sequence of end-time events that many believers anticipate is a dramatic and world-altering one. It follows a clear progression laid out in Scripture, particularly in Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelation. After the rapture and the rise of the Antichrist, the world enters the 7-year tribulation, a time of unprecedented suffering and divine judgment. The Antichrist will initially appear as a man of peace, but he will eventually reveal his true nature, setting himself up in the temple in Jerusalem, and demanding to be worshipped as God. This act, known as the Abomination of Desolation, marks the midpoint of the tribulation, and the beginning of its most intense phase, leading to the Battle of Armageddon and Christ's triumphant return to defeat evil and establish his kingdom. This framework, often called dispensationalism, has become incredibly influential, shaping the worldview of millions of Christians worldwide, particularly through popular works like the Left Behind series. It provides a sense of certainty in uncertain times, giving meaning to chaotic world events. It also fosters a deep commitment to the modern state of Israel, as many believe that supporting Israel is a biblical mandate, and that its existence is central to God's prophetic plan. The actions of political leaders, especially those seen as friendly to Israel like President Trump, are often viewed through this prophetic lens, as if they are divinely appointed actors in the final drama of human history. However, it is crucial to understand that not everyone agrees with this interpretation. Some theologians and scholars raise serious concerns about linking specific political events in modern nations directly to biblical prophecies. They argue that these texts were intended for their original audiences, and that applying them so literally to our time can be dangerous. Diana Butler Bass, a prominent scholar, warns that this kind of rapture theology can make war seem desirable or inevitable, potentially influencing foreign policy in a way that rushes toward conflict rather than seeking peace. These critics worry that it can lead to an uncritical endorsement of any action taken by Israel or its allies. This debate highlights a deep division, even among people of faith. While many evangelicals celebrated the 2025 to 2026 strikes on Iran as a fulfillment of prophecy, other voices, including some conservatives, condemned the actions as reckless and immoral. The core of the disagreement lies in how we read the Bible. Is it a detailed script for the future, or is it a message of faith and morality whose prophetic elements are more symbolic? Understanding these prophecies and the intense debates surrounding them is key to understanding why events in the Middle East ignite such passion. For millions, it is not just politics, it is the very unfolding of God's plan for the end of the age.